What's up guys, it's me yet again, Vincent Rojas, coming at you with another absolute banger of a review. Today I will be reviewing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. In preparation for this review, I rewatched all 6 of the previous Mission Impossible movies in the span of 48 hours, which was insane, and I might be slightly unhinged. I loved that experience, and I highly recommend doing it. I have come out on the other side a Mission Impossible movie expert. This movie is co-written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who also directed Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible Fallout, and will be directing the upcoming Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. This movie stars Tom Cruise, Rebecca Ferguson, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Vanessa Kirby, Hayley Atwell, Klementieff, Esai Morales, and Henry Czerny, reprising his role as Eugene Kittredge from the original Mission Impossible movie. In this movie, Ethan Hunt and his IMF team are on a race against a figure from Ethan's past to locate 2 halves of a key that unlocks a power that they must keep from the wrong hands. Before I get into the review, I would like to mention how I went to see this on opening night at AMC Theaters, and they had these cool limited edition posters for the opening of the movie, and there's probably fine print somewhere that says limit 1 per person, so of course, me, being the rule-abiding citizen that I am, 3 of them. I took 3 of them. It's a pretty sick poster, but I'm not the kind of guy who's going to put this up on his wall, so this is probably the only time I'm ever going to see these posters before putting them in a drawer somewhere and forgetting where I put them. This was definitely one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I've got to say that for the most part, it lived up to the hype surrounding it. It has everything you would want from a Mission Impossible movie. It has the crazy stunts, the epic locations, it has masks, and of course, it has an obligatory scene with Tom Cruise full-on sprinting. Starting off, this is an incomplete story if you couldn't infer that from the prominent Part 1 in the title, and it leaves off in a good part of the narrative which leaves the audience wanting to see the epic conclusion to the mission saga. 7 movies in, and this franchise is consistently proving that it might very well be the best ongoing action movie franchise, if not the best action movie franchise of all time. I think the only Mission Impossible movie that I don't like as much is Mission Impossible 2, and in my opinion that movie still has its moments. The stunts in this movie are downright spectacular in presentation. Tom Cruise is an insane man. At 61, he's still going strong, still doing his own stunts, looking great as he does them. By this point, everyone knows about the massive motorcycle stunt where Tom Cruise drives off a cliff in Norway. It is breathtaking to witness in the theater. There's a great car chase in Rome where Cruise is handcuffed to Hayley Atwell's character, a woman named Grace, as he's driving a little yellow Fiat 500. Cruise is speed flying at one point in the movie. There's a fight on top of a moving train, which is amazing as well. It's not the first train sequence in a Mission Impossible movie, the first one being in that original movie from '96. It's crazy because they had to actually build the train in order to destroy it later. The stunts in this movie are spectacular and are worth the price of admission alone. It goes without saying that I could not be more excited to see the stunts in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. One of my favorite aspects of this film in particular is the team itself. It's a very central aspect of the story. Since the villain is a rogue AI who is referred to as the Entity, they can't trust electronic communications, they can't trust their gadgets, they can't trust anything or anyone but their friends. This was a very interesting angle that I enjoyed see play out, whether it's Benji Dunn having to confess that he loves his friends the most in the whole world, or Ethan Hunt saying that they can't trust anyone outside of the room they're in. It brought the team closer together, and this also leads to real stakes in the film, where some team members' lives are threatened, and it makes for some real danger that added a lot to the movie, since all the team has in this movie is each other. Minor spoilers for this movie are coming with my next point. Nothing that I consider plot related, I think it's more character related, but if you don't want to know anything about this film going in, probably don't watch this part. Hayley Atwell's character, Grace, starts out as a thief, but over the course of the movie comes to be accepted as one of the team members. This was a character arc that I thought was a very good idea by the writers, to have someone start off really out of her element in this plot and begin to be initiated into the IMF team, eventually having a central part in the climax and having to figure some stuff out on her own, without someone in her ear to tell her how to solve certain problems. On paper, I think this is one of the most interesting character arcs in all of Mission Impossible. However, in its execution, I think the film falters a bit by having this arc, where she's eventually made part of the IMF, span just a single movie. I feel if they stretched this out naturally over 2 movies, it could have been so much better, especially since the next movie will be the last one. Having someone become a new IMF agent in the very last movie of the franchise could have been so cool, since it would be like the franchise came full circle at the very end. As it stands, her arc feels very compressed, and I didn't buy it all that much since it feels rushed, whereas the arc could have felt a lot more natural if it had been spread over 2 movies. Pom Clementieff's character, Paris, was really cool to see. She's kind of obsessed with mayhem and carnage, and even though she doesn't speak much, her character was one of my favorites in the film, and it was cool to see her whenever she was on screen. The villain for this installment is a man from Ethan's past named Gabriel Cruz, played by Esai Morales, and I thought he was a pretty weak antagonist overall. The Mission Impossible movies have pretty much never been about the antagonist so much as the stunts or the team dynamic. Philip Seymour Hoffman's Owen Davian from Mission Impossible 3 remains my favorite villain from these movies, but apart from him, there aren't many antagonists that are particularly memorable in this franchise. Solomon Lane was a pretty good antagonist as well, but Gabriel Cruz is just kind of someone for Ethan Hunt to punch around. Not nearly as bad a villain as Kurt Hendricks from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but not a great villain either. Serviceable for the plot and not for much else. Something else I didn't like was a death that happens in this film. It feels extremely unearned and just out of left field. I felt that the character absolutely should not have died in that scenario, and the way they died just felt very wrong, like they logically shouldn't have died when put in that position. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Additionally, there were a few fun Easter eggs to previous movies. I'm going to list the ones I noticed here, and as I progress, these might not even be Easter eggs as much as things I realized are from other movies since I saw them all in 2 days. Of course, Henry Czerny returns as Eugene Kittredge, who apart from this film has only been in the original Mission Impossible from '96. Luther Stickle is referred to as Phineas Freak, like he was in the first movie. Ethan Hunt is skilled at magic tricks, like he performed on the knock list in the first movie. His designator is Bravo Echo 11, which is also mentioned in the original Mission Impossible, as well as Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Benji Dunn uses the phrase, "and Bob's your uncle," like he did in the 4th movie. No one remembers that phrase in the 4th movie, only I remember that phrase in the 4th movie, because I literally saw it a day ago along with 3 other movies. He said it once in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. One time. It's a reference to when he says those words in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I'm not going crazy. I'm not going crazy. One minor nitpick I have for this movie is a few editing decisions that were made that I didn't really like. There's a couple of spots in the movie where the characters are talking, and then it cuts to a previous scene in the movie that shows exactly what they're talking about. For example, if they're talking about people sent to kill someone in the desert, it'll immediately cut to footage of that exact scene that happened earlier in the movie. And that happens in a few different points in the movie. To me, it felt a bit like pandering to the audience, like the movie doesn't trust its audience enough to pay attention to the movie, so it has to continuously cut back to earlier footage to remind the audience what's going on. I just felt like I know exactly what you're referring to. I don't need to see it again because I've been paying attention this whole time. I know what's going on. Also, there's one scene where Ethan Hunt is speaking in a different language, and it shows the English translation of what he's saying right next to his head. But then for all of the other lines spoken in that language, the English translation is shown at the bottom of the screen, as is usually done. I'm not sure why only the first line of translation was next to his head. I just thought it was slightly weird. It's not a major issue at all, just something I noticed. Overall, this is an extremely fulfilling summer blockbuster that left me hotly anticipating part 2. It's definitely worth seeing in theaters on the biggest screen you can, and it's best seen on IMAX. This is a movie that gives you your money's worth for sure. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Uploads will probably be a bit slower than normal in the coming weeks because I'm going on vacation, and I'll have to edit on a laptop instead of on desktop, so it might be slower than usual, or it might not be. Who knows? Go have a nice day. What's left of it. Peace.